What is happening, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Joelsuf Books, where I take stuff that's either going on currently in WWE or any other wrestling organization, really. I might want to do one of these for TNA Wrestling and for AEW and other stuff like that. That is either currently doing or has done, and I try to book them the way I would like to see it and the way that would make sense for the storyline progression and stuff like that. So let's get right into it. So WWE has been kind of teasing, not really teasing, it's actually happening now. Alexa Bliss aligning with Bray Wyatt to become Sister Abigail, to actually become the fictitious being that Bray Wyatt has been talking about in his promos ever since he created the Bray Wyatt character. So it's been since like 2013-ish. His finishing move has always been Sister Abigail, that DDT thing, or it was like a modified stroke almost. It's kind of a really cool finisher. We saw Lexi Bliss hit it on Nikki Cross, and then like that stare that she gave Roman Reigns was almost like indicative of Bray Wyatt saying, "Yo, you got my title, and I'm going to use Alexa Bliss to kind of send you that message." So I understand what WWE is trying to do here, and I figured I'd do this video right before the draft takes place. This way I could see if WWE is going to do things my way. Now, there's going to be a few goals for this. The first is to kayfabe up the stuff on WWE Network. So Alexa Bliss has like a podcast called like Unpopular or something, where she brings on guests and like they talk about their high school experiences and stuff like that. And that's kind of cool. I actually watched the one where she was with The Miz and like they were kind of joking about that, and it was a really fun podcast to listen to. I mean, it's Lexi Bliss, so I understand like her adolescent years are nothing like her 20s. I mean, she looks like the type who would bully her former self in her youth. You know what I mean? Like, 'cause I guess she wasn't attractive back in her teen years, and then she just blossomed. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. But yeah, so we're gonna kayfabe it up, and by kayfabe it up, I mean she's gonna actually have Bray Wyatt. Not as the Fiend, obviously, but not even as the Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, but just as a Wyndham Rotunda, just as Wyndham Rotunda, and like you're gonna see that happen, and then she's gonna bring on Nikki Cross, and that's gonna be a whole different thing. And I'm even going to bring Randy Orton into this and kind of book Randy Orton winning the title for the 15th time too. I'm actually going to do a Joelsuf Books on Randy Orton tying Ric Flair's world title record, and I'm actually going to combine that with Retribution, because WWE has jumped the shark on Retribution. Like, they like done goofed hard on Retribution, and I'm also predicting that WWE is gonna done goof hard on Lexi Bliss turning into Sister Abigail. By the way, I'm gonna probably alternate between Alexa Bliss and Lexi Bliss, just because I don't know, Lexi Bliss just sounds easier to say. Less syllables in it. It takes less effort for me to say. Anyways. So here we go. This isn't really going to be a long-term program. It's going to be more of a short-term one in terms of what I book. The duration of it's going to be from the end of the WWE draft, which is tomorrow on SmackDown, and then the next coming Monday. And it's going to continue until the Royal Rumble 2021. Then it's just going to kind of end at Royal Rumble 2021. So, and I'm looking down because I got notes here, so just letting y'all know. Anyways, yeah. So we begin on the October 9th version of edition of SmackDown, where the first round of the draft takes place. So, Lexi Bliss brings on Bray Wyatt on her talk show, on A Moment of Bliss. And the Fiend doesn't come out, but it's Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt. And he's all blue chipper. He's like, oh, it's so glad for me to be on this show. Man, I've always wanted to be on this show. That kind of stuff, whatever. And Nikki Cross interrupts and begins accusing Bray Wyatt of taking her, let's see if we can do this Scottish accent, of taking her Lexi away. I don't know. And then Lexi Bliss is like, no. We're always going to be friends. We're never going to be apart. Like, even if this draft puts you on Raw and puts me on SmackDown, or puts me on Raw and puts you on SmackDown, no. The thing with Bray Wyatt, it just, I don't know. It took me over for a little bit, but I'm okay now. And seeing Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, like, has gotten the Fiend out of me, because the Fiend is just, it's just an imagination thing. You know what I mean? But then Lexi Bliss hugs Nikki Cross and then hits his sister Abigail on her. And then in the microphone, she whispers, or she says, like, softly to Nikki, let him in. As if to say, let the Fiend in, that kind of stuff. And then she walks back to the back, holding Bray Wyatt's hand. And the announcer's like, what just happened here? And Nikki Cross is like looking towards them, like really confused, but also kind of mad too, because I'm teasing a Nikki Cross bad girl turn, and like, because WWE is using virtual fans and canned fan noise because of the pandemic. I mean, whether or not she's really going to be considered a bad girl or not is really not really up to anybody. It's just whatever. She's just going to turn into, from this like overly excited, can't wait to compete and stuff, to, some bitter woman who's been jilted by her best friend, like, because of Bray Wyatt. She's going to be all salty about it and stuff like that. And she's going to probably, she's going to turn into, you're going to see. And at the very end of the show, they start doing the draft picks. I'm not going to do all the draft picks because it's stupid. In fact, I think the brand split is dumb. It was awful when they did it 4 years ago. It was meh 15 years ago when it actually made sense. And it's completely pointless now. But let's just continue with the damn brand split, because whatever. And the very last pick of the night, the final pick of the night, is Lexi Bliss going to Raw. So on Talking Smack, I'm also going to kayfabe up Talking Smack and Raw Talk too. Those shows are already kind of kayfabed up, but not really. But Talking Smack comes on the next morning, because they air that on Saturday mornings, right? And they put on Nikki Cross on first. And they're asking her, what was it, R-Truth and Charlie Caruso, right? So they're asking her, oh, do you miss Lexi? Like, I know she's on Raw now, and, like, how is that going to affect her relationship with the Fiend and stuff? And Nikki goes, you know what? Like, I don't know what happened to Lexi, but she's still going to be my friend. I wish her the best. I know she's going to beat everyone's ass on Raw. And she's saying this, like, while holding back tears, as if, like, she lost, like, a partner, like, as if she lost, like, a really good friend. And then she's like, honestly, I can't do this anymore. And she just starts holding back tears and starts crying, and then she just left. And she just leaves. So on Raw, which is the second night of the draft, and this isn't going to be like the other drafts where, like, you can go, like, you can get drafted and then get drafted again. I remember that happening in, like, 2011 with John Cena, and I almost threw a bowling ball at my TV. I was like, fuck this. Yes, they still had a brand split in 2011. It was really retarded. It's just as retarded as now. Now it's even more retarded. because you should just have Raw and SmackDown and NXT. Like, you should just have Raw / SmackDown and NXT. Like, all three of them as separate brands. Or Raw and SmackDown being its own brand, and then NXT being its separate brand or something like that. It should never. I hate the brand split so much. Anyways, so Asuka's having a non-title match with, I don't know, I don't know, who's on Raw? Mandy Rose. There you go. Let's give Mandy Rose a push. Have her that's a non-title match, or if Mandy Rose wins, she loses, or it's a no decision because Lexi attacks both Asuka and Mandy Rose like viciously during the match, just randomly, and the announce team goes, "Oh my God, here comes Lexi Bliss. This is Raw's newest acquisition." This is like the first match of the night too, and so and like after Lexi Bliss attacks both girls, she gets in the middle of the ring, and she like has that that little faraway stare that she was having, whatever, and she says like really sternly, "Let him in," referring to Bray Wyatt. However, at the end of the night, Bray Wyatt doesn't even get drafted. He just stays on SmackDown. So now things get a little bit interesting because you have Lexi on Raw, and you have Nikki Cross and Bray Wyatt on SmackDown. So what I'm going to do here too is I'm going to book a match between Lexi Bliss and Bray Wyatt, because why not have some intergender stuff? You know what I mean? I know like WWE doesn't want to do it anymore, but intergender matches were really good 15 some odd years ago. I mean, I remember Jackie Moore having tons of intergender matches against the cruiserweight guys, and she looked awesome, and she made the cruiserweight guys look really good. How come you can't have Nikki Cross can hold her own against dudes in the ring? I truly believe that. Like, you see her at NXT compared to now, and she was beating some ass on NXT. But anyways, Raw talk right after the show, and now Lexi is put on, and she gets put on the spot here by Charlie Caruso. She asks Lexi, "Who do you miss more? Do you miss Bray Wyatt because of the Fiend in you, or do you miss Nikki Cross, a woman who you had the tag team titles with?" And then Truth goes, "Hey, how come you attacked Asuka and Mandy Rose and you said let him in?" And you see Alexa Bliss like go from the faraway look to like two of her friends just died. And like she starts like her eyes start tearing up, it ruins her makeup and stuff. And she doesn't say anything. And she just leaves in tears. And and you can get Caruso and Truth to kind of sell the draft, being like, "Man, this draft has altered the careers of so many performers," that kind of shit, that kind of stuff. You can say that, whatever. And now we come to our first Alexa Bliss unpopular podcast, right? Is that what it's called? Unpopular or unloved or whatever the fuck it is? I don't know. But she has her podcast, right? And usually the stuff on WWE Network isn't kayfabed up. It's like they use their names, but they don't mention anything that happens on the shows. And if they do, they joke about it. You're not gonna see this with the Alexa Bliss podcast, because Bray Wyatt goes on, and she doesn't refer to him as Bray Wyatt. She refers to him as Wyndham Rotunda. And when Bray Wyatt comes out, he's not dressed up as the Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, or the Bray Sanity Bray Wyatt, even though that would be hilarious because Lexi Bliss used to do strong woman competitions, I think. So that would fit right in with the Bray Sanity. And he doesn't come out with the Fiend mask. No, he just comes out as Wyndham Rotunda. And they actually start having a conversation. She actually says, hey, how'd you come up with the Bray Wyatt character? And were you like that when you were growing up? That kind of stuff. And, Bray Wyatt's like, yeah, it kind of was like that when I was growing up. It was really weird because I was like part country dude, and that's how I got husky hairs. And he's like, but I was also part like a cult guy. You know what I mean? And he says that, he got Bray Wyatt kind of from like, from that one dude in the mid-90s WWE. I forget his name. I think he was played by Don Callis. I don't remember. But it was like it was very similar to Bray Wyatt. But yeah, so he talks about that. And then, this is where it gets kayfabed up. So, as Wyndham Rotunda is like talking, like Alexa Bliss is just like lovingly staring into his eyes. And she says, I'm sorry, I was just distracted because she's like, I don't know, I shouldn't say this on this podcast, but man, I can't get enough of you. And she just says that and like says it in a really sexual way. And then at the end, like a couple minutes before the show ends, Lexi like jumps on top of Bray Wyatt, and then she whispers right into his ear, "Let me in." Like really sexually, and it just fades to black. So you see right there, like what I want to do with Lexi Bliss turning into Sister Abigail is make her like a temptress of sorts that helps Bray Wyatt win matches. So like, and the first person who she has to seduce isn't even Bray Wyatt. It's the guy who plays Bray Wyatt, who is Wyndham Rotunda, who I think is still married, by the way. So that's going to even cut into his off-screen relationships. And it'll even come to that later on. So now we have the TV shows before Hell in a Cell. I'm not going to book each and every one, but whatever. So at some point during the TV shows before Hell in the Cell, we have Bayley bullying Nikki Cross on SmackDown. Going, what are you going to do without your best friend? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I don't need a best friend because you saw me beat up Sasha Banks. Do you want me to beat you up? I'm going to beat you up. And so they have a match, just a non-title one. And Sasha Banks, of course, interferes. And Nikki Cross beats up both Bayley and Sasha Banks. And she is just, like, off the wall. Like, she just will not stop. Like, she won't stop beating up Bayley, and she won't stop beating up Nikki Cross won't stop beating up Sasha Banks. She uses weapons. It takes a whole bunch of dude referees to pull her off of both of them and stuff like that. And also on the SmackDowns going into Hell in the Cell, you see Nikki Cross like trying to awkwardly ask a lot of the girls if they want to be her tag team partner and stuff like that, because she still wants to win the tag team titles because she misses being with Lexi, and none of them say no. And like at first she's like, "Aw, shucks, that's okay. I'll ask the next girl." But by like the fourth or fifth one, it could be any of them. You could bring some NXT girls in. I don't know, whatever. But like by the fourth or fifth one, she's like, man, come on. How come no one wants to join me? And the final one, she just screams, "Why not?" And like the girl who she asks to be her tag team partner just walks away. And during one of Bray Wyatt's matches, Nikki Cross attacks Bray Wyatt, and she like goes to town on this dude. Gets kendo sticks, gets steel chairs. If I had my way, they'd still allow unprotected chair shots, although you'd have to pull it. You'd have to like not swing full force. That was the problem with that's what causes this. That's probably what causes the CTE is that you were seeing people in the late '90s and early 2000s swing these weapons full freaking force. Like, no, man, like do it the way like Terry Funk does it, where it's like like a quarter of your full strength. You could have Nikki do that to Bray Wyatt and stuff like that. She rips off the Fiend's mask. And pretty much does also, like, in the TV shows going into Hell in the Cell, she does stuff similar to Sabu in 1995, where she just sets up tables and just throws herself into them and stuff like that. Just really crazy stuff. As if to, like, say that, like, losing Lexi has really made Nikki Cross lose her mind. That kind of stuff. And then, like, she even, like, mocks Bray Wyatt by, like, screaming, like, "Let me in," on the mic. During random matches, during random segments. Have her do that. Have her be a complete wild chick. Nikki Cross. And if fans were allowed in arenas, they would not like that. They would not like, seeing like Miz and Morrison having like a really good match against Heavy Machinery, and then Nikki Cross just runs in and just interrupts everything and fucks everything up. Fans hated that when Sabu did that 25 years ago, and they would probably hate it if Nikki Cross did it now. So that's why I'm having her do that, and it makes sense too, because in her promos when she was with Lexi, she was even saying that in her promo. She said, "Look, like I was directionless and psycho and crazy, and I had no idea what to do in WWE, but then Lexi made me focused." You know what I mean? So when Nikki loses Lexi and she's left with Bray Wyatt, who like doesn't really care about what Lexi does because he's the freaking Fiend, how's that gonna that? So yeah. And now we got the Hell in the Cell. And on the TV shows before Hell in the Cell, Lexi's doing similar to Nikki, only she's interrupting matches and she's like saying on the play-by-play, she like grabs like Byron Saxton and throws him to the side and does some play-by-play and saying, just repeating, "Let him in, let him in, let him in, let him in." She goes on the mic and says it too. So there's parallels between Nikki Cross and Lexi Bliss here, because now Lexi's going crazy because she doesn't have Bray Wyatt. So in Hell, and all of this, this goes into Hell in the Cell, where during one of the Cell matches, is there gonna be like 3 Cell matches this year at Hell in the Cell? How horrible is that having? Such a gimmick now, man. Like, I swear, like, they should never have done that as a pay-per-view. Like, are you kidding me? But anyways, during one of the Cell matches, could be any of them, I don't really care. Oh no, during Orton versus McIntyre, Lexi Bliss just runs in out of nowhere and runs and climbs up the cage. This is while Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre are having their match. And she grabs a mic and she like, I don't know, brings it up to the top of the cage with her, and she just repeats, "Let him in, let him in, let him in, let him in, let him in," constantly, and it's interrupting Orton and McIntyre's match. Like, Orton and McIntyre are like, "What the fuck is this girl doing up there, man?" And they're trying to have their match. Adam Pearce comes out and says to Lexi, if you don't get off that cage, and by get off I don't mean jump down, if you don't get off that cage and if you don't quit saying let him in, then you're just gonna get fired. Then you're fired, and I have the authority to do that. And so Adam Pearce says, "Look, I'll do you one better. I'm gonna arrange a trade for someone on Raw, Keith Lee, because Keith Lee is horrible on Raw now, and he'd be way better on SmackDown. him versus what's it called? Him versus Matt Riddle, bro. Like, could you imagine that? That'd be fantastic. You continue. I think they had a feud in NXT, right? So you can continue that. He'll be like, look. So Adam Pearce says, look, I'm gonna do it tomorrow. I'm gonna trade Keith Lee for Bray Wyatt just so you can have your guy. And Lexi, in response, laughs like maniacally laughs, and then jumps anyway through a gimmicked table. And McIntyre and Orton finish their match, and Orton actually wins against McIntyre. He takes the title off of McIntyre, and at the end of the match, Bray Wyatt comes out as the Fiend through the ring. And he beats up Randy Orton, and he beats up Drew McIntyre. He hits both of them with the title, and he carries Lexi Bliss up the ramp. And that ends Hell in the Cell. Okay, alright, we're halfway home here. So Raw after Hell in the Cell. So now Bray Wyatt's on Raw, and he restarts his feud with Randy Orton. Firefly Funhouse comes on. First segment of, or not the first segment of the night. We'll wait like an hour into the Raw, to the Raw show, and Firefly Funhouse comes up, and Bray Wyatt's like, oh man, I can't believe I'm back on Raw. This feels like home. This feels like home, and I want to welcome someone else into my home. And he goes, ladies and gentlemen, this is my new guest, Abigail Bliss. And Lexi comes out as not as Sister Abigail, but just as regular Lexi Bliss. And Lexi Bliss goes, and Lexi's like, oh, I'm so glad I'm on this show. You know, I'm hurting from the fall, but when you picked me up and when you carried me to the back, I just magically healed. And that kind of shows, like, you know, that Bray Wyatt has these powers, and that Lexi Bliss is like gonna be like a seductress now. This is where we actually see the dynamics between Lexi Bliss and Bray Wyatt and how they're gonna help each other out, but in a good way, because they're gonna go up against bad guys like Randy Orton and like who's a bad girl on Raw? Natalia, right? And Lana and other bad girls. I don't know. The women's stuff needs to be on like all three shows. Like they need to just unify all three women's titles and have all women, and have all the women just be on all three shows. Like, cause there's like, I can name like what like 4 chicks on Raw. Right, Asuka's the champ. I think one of the Iconics is on Raw, so you could have Lexi beat them up, one of them up. Bianca Belair is going to be on one of them shows. Yeah, so you know I can't name, so whatever. That's why I'm not naming actual names of the chicks, because like I don't know who's on all the shows, because there's not that many to choose from. And so Bray Wyatt, then, you know, he goes from Firefly Funhouse to the Fiend. You know, he just makes that little transition. He goes, Randy Orton, we have unfinished business. Let me in. Let me in. A title match. And Orton is like, Orton was out cutting a promo, and then he got cut off from the Firefly Funhouse. And Orton goes, I'd be honored to end you, because you've been nothing but an annoyance to me. Even when I joined the Wyatt family, you know I was just joining just to get closer to the title so I could take it off of you at WrestleMania 33. He's like, you're nothing to me. Drew McIntyre is nothing to me. So, yeah, you're on. And so we're going to see... And so later that night, it's Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt for the title. And we're not going to have McIntyre in this because Drew McIntyre, I enjoy him as champion now. But if there were live crowds, he'd be stale. And he'd be getting Roman Reigns heat because he's just as predictable in 2020 as Roman Reigns was 5 years ago. Okay? So the remedy for that is just to have Drew McIntyre back off the title scene, the title picture, for a few months. He'll get back on it in 2021, but for now, we're gonna have Drew McIntyre be, kayfabe injured. Orton punts him, and he actually has to sit out a few months because it was like really bad, that kind of stuff. So no Drew McIntyre for the title, no. Instead, we have Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt for the title, and this is where you see seductress Lexi Bliss. So, of course, Bray Wyatt comes out with Lexi as the Fiend, and Orton is no selling it. He's like, I don't care. You're just a mirage. You're just some stupid. You're just some whatever. And Lexi just messes with Orton the entire match and throws him off of his game. He can't hit RKOs. He can't hit a punt. Whenever he tries to punt, when he does hit an RKO on Wyatt, and Wyatt does sell it, because even Wyatt needs to sell stuff. It was cool when he was no selling everything. That match against Seth Rollins at last year's Hell in the Cell, actually, in my opinion, it was only shitty because it was all red, and then Seth Rollins won anyway, which is dumb. You know what I mean? And that's what that was really bad. But it was cool to see Bray Wyatt just no selling everything. But that can only happen once. And then you can't do it again. So as Orton sets up for the punt, Lexi Bliss, gets involved in the match. And, she takes Orton outside and, and then she's, heavy flirting with Randy Orton. And, Orton's just, Orton tries to, shove Lexi Bliss off of him, but he just cannot do it. He's just mesmerized. He doesn't understand that he doesn't know what to do here. And that gives Bray Wyatt just enough time to drag Orton into the ring, hit the Sister Abigail, and your new WWE champion at the Raw after Hell in the Cell is Bray Wyatt. So on the SmackDown after Hell in the Cell, we get a KO show with Nikki Cross. In the draft, I have Kevin Owens go to SmackDown, so he can do the KO show there. And so Kevin asks Nikki, he's like, "What do you do now?" Because Bray Wyatt is on Raw, Lexi is on Raw. You're on your own here now. And Nikki Cross goes, "You know what? I realized something here. I've been too nice. I've let people in my life without even seeing what ulterior motives they have. And you know what? I'm not even happy for Lexi anymore. She can do what she wants with Bray Wyatt because, and she says, yeah, I'm jealous of Bray Wyatt for taking my Lexi away. But now the draft took Wyatt away. And now my hands are clean of both of them. And so from this moment on, I don't need anybody. Then Bayley comes out. Bayley goes, look. And of course, Bayley is still the ultra cocky, almost like a female MJF she's becoming, which is really weird. And it's really cool. The best thing to come out of this year in wrestling is Bad Girl Bayley. She is fantastic as a bad girl, and she is awesome. But she goes, so she still thinks that Sasha Banks like ditched her, and she goes to Nikki. She goes, look, I know what you're going through. The fact of the matter is that I'm alone out here because no one trusts me. You're alone out here because no one wants to join you because they don't see what I see, and what I see is a woman who will beat anyone's ass. And Bayley goes, look, I want to be Bayley 2 belts again. And I'm pretty sure if we win the tag team titles, Asuka's going to take you seriously so that you can win her title on Raw. So Bayley goes, look, if you want to ignore all the true things I was saying, then go right ahead. And you can say you don't need anybody, and eventually you're gonna come across me anyways because you're gonna be challenging me for this title, right? May as well join me, win the tag team titles, and then you can win Asuka's title, and that'll get your revenge on Lexi as well because you'll be on Raw and you'll be able to challenge for the title on Raw. Bayley's like, what do you say? It's gonna be very similar to Rated RKO when they formed in late 06. And then Nikki goes, if you do what you did to Banks to me, you're not gonna have a career. I'm just letting you know right now. Nikki goes to Bayley. She goes, that's what you did to Sasha. If that was me, she wouldn't be doing any segments at all. She'd be at home forever. So keep that in mind when I join you. I'm gonna be looking at you constantly. I'm gonna be making sure that you are in my corner every step of the way. And then she's like, now let's go win some tag team titles. Okay, cool. And then later that night, or right then, they challenge Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler for the ladies tag team title. And in my booking of all this, like, all the champions can go wherever they want. So, or they can go wherever they want. It depends on who challenges them. So if someone on SmackDown challenges a Raw champion, the Raw champion has to defend their title on SmackDown or something like that. I don't know. It's really weird because there's no GMs. It's all Adam Pearce, who is like kind of GM light. So it's like, I don't get it. But anyways, we're going to have Bayley and Nikki Cross versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler for the ladies tag team titles. And we get to see a reunion on this night's show. So Bayley and Nikki Cross actually win. They win with Nikki Cross pinning Nia Jax, while Bayley and Shayna Baszler are like brawling on the outside. The second the match ends, Lexi Bliss and Bray Wyatt come out, and Nikki is like staring knives through Lexi Bliss. And she wants to attack Lexi Bliss, but Bayley's like, no. Bayley holds her back. Bayley's like, no. You don't have to do that. Gets on the mic and says this. Bayley gets on the mic and says, no, you don't have to do that. Because I'm really good with friends with one of the guys who used to be WWE champion. So he's going to have it all handled. And out comes Randy Orton. Out comes Randy Orton. He attacks Bray Wyatt from behind. So those two are brawling now. And Nikki and Bayley beat the crap out of Lexi Bliss. And Nikki Cross just goes insane on this woman. Throws her into the wall thing on the set and stuff like that. And it ends with Nikki Cross throwing Lexi Bliss off the stage. And I mean choke slamming her too. Like, we could have that. We could have Nikki Cross throw a choke slam to Lexi Bliss. And at the end, you could hear Nikki shouting, is that what you wanted? Is that what you left me for? That's what you left me for. So now you're gonna pay. That kind of stuff. So yeah, good stuff. And after Raw, in between Raw and SmackDown, we're gonna kayfabe up the Lexi Bliss podcast again, and this one's gonna be big, because on this one, her guest is Nikki Cross, and they can't even have a conversation. Nikki goes "Why Bray Wyatt? Why Bray Wyatt? We had something great together. We had something great. We could have won the tag team titles again. You know we could have. How come you just... What's wrong with you?" And Lexi Bliss goes, "Nothing's wrong with me. There's something wrong with you. How come you chokeslammed me off the stage? That actually hurt, and I actually can't compete for a few weeks now because of that. You asshole." And they actually cuss at each other in the podcast, and they have to 7-second delay, they have to bleep in 7-second delay, and some of the cuss words actually come out and stuff like that, and it all ends, and they just squawk at each other for a whole half hour. They go over the history. Nikki goes "Oh, what were you doing before you decided to turn into something you hated?" You know what I mean? And Lexi goes, "Oh, what were you doing on freaking Raw and SmackDown before I joined up with you? You were doing nothing. You were doing jobs. Former NXT Women's Champion going against Asuka in ridiculous tables matches, and then you get to Raw and SmackDown, what happens? You just do jobs. You become enhancement talent. What's so great about you, Nikki?" And Nikki Cross goes, "You know what? We're going to solve this. We're going to solve this in a way that brings two things, one thing that we agree on, and that is that us women can put on matches just as good as any guys. That's been proven for 5 years, right?" Is what she says to Lexi. So she says, "Look, get you and 4 other girls on Raw. I'm gonna get myself and 4 other girls on SmackDown. We're gonna have SmackDown versus Raw at Survivor Series, 5-on-5 match." So that's gonna be the lead-in for their little annual Raw versus SmackDown Survivor Series clusterfuck. So now we're at the TV shows before Survivor Series. So here, Lexi and Nikki, they just keep interfering in each other's matches. They come in through the stands. Adam Pearce has to kick them out, and it gets out of hand. It's ridiculous. And it leads to one night on SmackDown where Lexi Bliss, with the Fiend, interrupts interferes with Bayley and Nikki's tag team titles match against, I don't know, you throw 2 girls in there, whoever they want to be. Oh, no, even better. On Raw, they lose the tag team titles to Lana and Natalya. There you go. Yeah, and then Nikki Cross just gets really mad, and she does to Bayley what Bayley did to Sasha Banks. So that's gonna make Nikki Cross a don't fuck with this woman heel, just a bad girl who you do not want to mess with. Which, I mean, it's almost a good guy move, but fans could also boo that, because especially if you have live fans with Bayley, because live fans would be cheering the crap out of Bayley. They'd be cheering her like crazy because she's just entertaining as fuck. So that's my logic there, is that you're going to have Nikki Cross just beat up anybody. She's just going to be miserable, like Hall of Pain, Hall of Pain Mark Henry. She's just going to be like, if you get in my way, I'm just going to beat your ass. So yeah. And at this point, Lexi Bliss is pretty much a female version of Bray Wyatt now, to where she's just, but also she's like more she's not like really spooky and creepy. She just viciously attacks whoever's in front of her as well. And her only goal now is just to end Nikki Cross. Like, she just wants to do away with this girl. And so she does that through the Survivor Series match or whatever. Makes no difference. So it becomes really personal between Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss now. So there you go. So now we get to another Alexa Bliss podcast where Randy Orton is on. Randy Orton, who was feuding with Bray Wyatt for the title, who Lexi Bliss seduced into losing the title. They have a somewhat normal conversation, actually, for like the first 20 or so minutes of the podcast. But then it slowly gets awkward and weird whenever Lexi mentions Bray Wyatt. She goes oh, Bray Wyatt was on this podcast a few weeks ago, and he's actually pretty cool. He's cool when he's not the Fiend. He's cool when he's cool. He's awesome when he's the Fiend. Because Lexi is still a fangirl for Bray Wyatt, obviously. But she's even more. He's even better as Wyndham Rotunda and stuff like that. And Orton is just I don't understand what kind of weird powers you have, but when you interfered in that match, I lost my title to him, and I couldn't do anything to throw you off me or anything like that. And Lexi goes, "Oh, I'll show you why I can do that." And just like the one where she was with Bray Wyatt, the last couple minutes, she kind of flirts with Randy Orton a little bit. She's like, "Oh, you know what? You're just as good looking as Bray. You're just as manly as Bray Wyatt. You're just as amazing as Bray Wyatt." Wow. She keeps saying that. She keeps flirting, and then at the very end of the show, she just whispers to Randy Orton. She's like, "Let him in." And then low blows him at the end of the show. And then just giggles and walks away. Like that. So yeah, so Lexi Bliss now has just lost her mind. And it's awesome. So now we're on Survivor Series 2020. And this is one thing where it's it's good, where it's predictable, because in this show, you have the 5-on-5 ladies match, and Lexi Bliss and Nikki Cross just brawl the back. It starts with them, and they both get double countered out because they just go to the outside of the ring and just beat the shit out of each other. And the footage has a double screen where has the match on one screen, it has Lexi and Nikki brawling with each other all over the Amway Center in the or wherever WWE is going to film their stuff after their contract with the Amway Center ends. So all around the venue, they're just throwing each other into stuff and hitting each other with weapons and stuff like that. It's almost like the Boiler Room brawls that Mankind and Undertaker had in 1996. Where they're just beating the bejesus out of each other, and strangely enough, Nikki Cross comes out on top, and she throws Lexi into something, and Lexi just has to sell it, and she's done. And Nikki Cross just shouts at her at the top of her lungs as she walks away, "I'm done with you! I'm finished with you!" So there you go, and that kind of doesn't end their feud yet. It will, but it's almost there. It's at its peak. And last match of the night, we have Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt for the title. And oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So like after Nikki walks away, like you see Lexi Bliss just beaten, battered, bloody even, and like just like crying out, "Help me, fiend! Help me! Let him in! Let him in! Help me, please! Help me, fiend!" In the back, and Bray Wyatt can't help her because he has a title match. And during this title match, Nikki Cross gets in Randy Orton's corner, and Randy Orton's like looking over at Nikki Cross, like, can I trust this girl? Like, is this girl gonna do something stupid to me, like Lexi did, and whatever? But no, Randy Orton wins the title for the 16th for his, wins the title for his 16th. Yeah, gets his 16th title win when Nikki Cross punts Bray Wyatt, and that ends Survivor Series 2020. And in the TV shows between Survivor Series 2020 and Armageddon 2020, yeah, I'm calling it this December one Armageddon. It's not gonna be TLC. I can't have these gimmicky ass pay-per-views. No, just can't do it. It's Armageddon. It's gonna be Armageddon. Yeah. We hear that Lexi Bliss has actually been injured because of Nikki, and on one of the Raw talks, on one of the Talking Smacks, because Nikki Cross is still on SmackDown. She's asked like, "Do you regret what you did to Lexi Bliss?" And Nikki goes, "No, of course not. She had it coming. She should have known better. She should have never agreed to get drafted to Raw." And they go, "Well, it's a draft. Like, they don't get a choice." And Nikki goes, "She had a choice. She just chose wrong. And so I had to make the decision to put her on the shelf for a few months. And, and if she wants to come back, I'm going to beat her ass again. And I'm just going to keep beating her up until she learns her lesson. And that lesson is when you're with me for life." And then they ask her, "Oh, is that why you attacked Bayley?" And Nikki Cross says, "I attacked Bayley because Bayley isn't on my level. And she proved that when she got pinned to lose our tag team titles." And then Bayley comes on the show, and then they're gonna have a nice little program for the women's championship. So we have Armageddon 2020. It's Nikki Cross versus Bayley for the title. And then instead of Bray Wyatt doing his little let me in thing, Lexi Bliss does it. And that freaks Nikki out like crazy. Similar to Kane in 2004, when Undertaker was going to return at WrestleMania 20. Very similar to that. So Lexi Bliss just is too shocked to continue the match. Bayley pins her 1-2-3 to retain her title. And on the Raw after, she sneaks on the Raw dressed as a janitor like Randy Orton did to beat up the Legends a week or so ago. And she walks up to Bray Wyatt and she's like, please, I don't want Lexi to go after me. Please don't let her go after me. Cowardly heel. And so Bray Wyatt goes, and he's in his Firefly Funhouse thing. Wyatt says to Nikki, he's like, "That's out of my hands. She's going to do whatever she wants to do." And you keep seeing vignettes of Lexi Bliss, teasing a return throughout December and throughout January. The first and the first Raw of and the first SmackDown of January, you get one of the NXT girls who looks like Lexi Bliss to attack Nikki Cross during one of her matches, and but it's not Lexi Bliss, and Nikki Cross is like, "What the hell?" And so you have her get on the mic and be like, "Lexi, if you're gonna come out, then come out and just be you. If you've recovered from your injuries, let's just get out here at this ring. Let's have this one final goddamn match until we can bury everything. You know what I mean? But no response from Lexi. Of course, until Royal Rumble 2021. This is where it's all going to end. And since Survivor Series would be on November 22nd, or at least I'm expecting it to be on the 22nd. That's like, what, the third Sunday, right? It's usually the third Sunday of every month is when they have Survivor Series, and this year it's the 22nd. So we have Nikki Cross coming out at 11, and we have Lexi Bliss coming out at number 22, which is when 11/22, that's when Lexi Bliss got injured by Nikki Cross. So that's like a little thing there. And then, but also you're going to have the in-ring return of Sasha Banks, who, of course, I think everyone is pretty much that's pretty much in the books that Sasha Banks is going to win the Ladies Rumble 2021. It's going to be her versus Bayley at WrestleMania 27, or 37, rather. But yeah, that was, so that's my fantasy booking of Lexi Bliss turning into Sister Abigail and doing Sister Abigail type things, and also a feud between Lexi Bliss and Nikki Cross that you can probably book for most of 2021. You know, you can have them be on the same show and whatever, and you can have like Bray Wyatt in Lexi's corner. And then, like, going into WrestleMania 37, you can have Lexi Bliss versus Nikki Cross with Bray Wyatt as the special guest referee or something like that, and whatever. I was gonna almost have it like be like a love triangle almost, but I don't know. But that's how I would book Lexi Bliss becoming Sister Abigail. Let's see if some of the stuff I do is right. I know that they're not gonna have like Lexi Bliss like do the gimmicky stuff on the podcast, although it would be a really good idea to kayfabe up the podcast a little bit, especially if they want to turn Lexi Bliss and have her go through that really deep character change. You almost need to have that, really. But, I mean, you know, if they're not going to have that, I don't really care about that. But, anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Different than other fantasy booking videos, I decided not to type everything out and just have, like, these little pictures here, like what some other podcasters do. I can't really edit. So I don't like editing because it takes time and effort. So I just kind of make it like podcast style. I hope you enjoy this type of fantasy booking. I know fantasy booking videos are pretty popular now. I mean, ever since Adam Blompier started doing them 5 years ago, now it seems everyone does them now. You have Parts of Unknown doing them, that's Adam. Plana Productions, he's pretty cool. He's been doing fantasy booking too. He does them way better than I do, I think. I just do them in podcast style because it's easier that way. But whatever. So I hope you enjoyed this. The one for Retribution, I'm actually probably going to do it tomorrow, right before the draft. I don't like what WWE is. Let me go ahead and spend the next minute and some change ranting about Retribution, just so I can make this an hour even. The way WWE has booked Retribution is piss poor. There's only two words to describe it, which is piss poor. Like, on Raw, I saw Mustafa Ali become the leader of Retribution, apparently. Like, what? Mustafa Ali, great worker. Like, I agree with what OTRS was saying about him. Great worker, good dude, company man, obviously. But he's one step away from being enhancement talent. Bruh, it doesn't slide when it comes to something like Retribution. Like, you can't do that when it comes to something like Retribution. Retribution needs to have, dudes who are threats, who are legitimate threats. Nexus wasn't... And honestly, the closest thing to it, and this is laughable, was the Invasion. Because even the Invasion was an actual... Yes, I mean, most of it was, enhancement talent, too. But you had DDP, you had Booker T. You know what I mean? You had some guys who were like, oh shit, like these guys could really wreck shop here. But did you get that in the Nexus 10 years ago? No. Did you get that with Retribution? No. But so I'm gonna have a lot more. The run with Retribution is probably gonna be just as long as this, but will probably be a little bit longer actually. But that's gonna be a fun video for me to do. Anyways, thank you for watching / listening. I will see you in the next stream or video. Take care.